You've felt it before, that quiet knowing that arrives before your mind has had a chance to catch up. You meet someone and something in you says, "Not quite, you can't explain it, there's no evidence." They haven't done anything wrong, but something in you already knows, or you're about to make a decision that looks completely logical on paper. Everything lines up. The numbers work, the timing is right, the reasons are all there, and yet something in you pulls back, quietly, without drama. Without explanation, just, "No, not this, something isn't right." Most people call this a gut feeling, something they either trust completely or dismiss entirely. But Carl Jung looked at this experience and saw something far more interesting than a hunch. He saw evidence of the most sophisticated information processing system that human beings have access to. And he spent decades studying what this system is, how it works, why it speaks in feelings rather than words, when to trust it, and what happens to people who consistently ignore it. In this video, we're going through all of it. What Jung actually believed about gut feeling, how it works psychologically, when it's most reliable, and how you can develop a better relationship with yours. Stay with me. Part 1, the two minds. To understand what Jung said about gut feeling, you have to understand his model of the mind. Most people think of the mind as essentially synonymous with consciousness, with the thinking, analyzing, deciding part of themselves that they experience as me. Jung would say that's a small part of the mind, an important part, but small. He compared the mind to an iceberg. The conscious mind is the part above the water, visible, accessible, the part you can see and examine directly, the part that thinks in language and logic and follows chains of reasoning from A to B to C. But beneath the waterline, much larger, much heavier, much more influential, is the unconscious, the part you can't see directly, the part that doesn't announce itself in words, the part that communicates in feelings and images and dreams and what we're calling gut feelings. And here's what's critical to understand. The unconscious is not empty. It's not a blank space waiting for input from consciousness. It's full, it's active, it's constantly processing. It contains everything you've ever experienced, every interaction you've ever had, every pattern you've ever observed, every piece of information your senses have ever taken in, whether or not your conscious mind registered it as significant. Your conscious mind can hold roughly 7 pieces of information at once. It processes one thing at a time, but your unconscious mind processes in parallel, multiple streams of information simultaneously. It's running all the time, even when you're asleep, even when you're consciously focused on something completely different. And when it has processed enough information about a situation, when it has detected patterns that are relevant or potentially dangerous, it delivers the result to your conscious mind. But it doesn't deliver it as a logical argument. It delivers it as a feeling, a sense of rightness or wrongness, a pull toward or away from, a quiet certainty that something is true even though you can't yet explain why. That's the gut feeling. That's what Jung meant when he said, intuition is perception via the unconscious. Not magic, not beyond explanation. The result of unconscious processing that is genuinely more sophisticated than what conscious reasoning could produce in the same time frame. Part 2, Jung's 4 functions. Where intuition fits, Jung developed a specific framework for understanding the different ways human beings process information. He called these the 4 psychological functions. The 4 functions are thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Thinking is the function that analyzes, that reasons, that evaluates based on logic and evidence. The thinking function wants to understand why. Feeling is the function that evaluates based on value and meaning, what matters, what resonates, what aligns with your personal values. The feeling function wants to know what something means. Sensation is the function that perceives through the physical senses. Concrete. Present reality, what's actually here right now. The sensation function wants to know what's real and tangible, and then there's intuition. Intuition is the perceiving function that operates through the unconscious. It doesn't deal with what's present and concrete the way sensation does. It deals with what's possible, what's emerging, what's beneath the surface, what's coming. Intuition jumps. It doesn't follow step-by-step logical chains. It leaps from where things are to where they are going, from what's visible to what's hidden, from the present moment to the pattern that the present moment is part of. This is why gut feelings often feel like knowing something you have no logical right to know, because the intuitive function isn't following the logical chain. It's perceiving something that's real but that the logical chain hasn't arrived at yet. Jung believed that everyone has access to all 4 functions, but most people have 1 or 2 that are more developed than the others. Which means that for highly intuitive people, people whose intuitive function is well developed, Gut feelings are a regular and reliable part of how they navigate the world, and for people whose intuition is less developed, people who rely primarily on thinking or sensation, gut feelings might be rarer and easier to dismiss. But here's what Jung was clear about: everyone has the capacity for intuition. It's a fundamental human function, and everyone has access to it. The difference is in how developed it is and how conscious the person is of when it's speaking. Part 3. Why gut feelings know things logic doesn't. This is the part that most people find most fascinating. Why does the gut feeling sometimes know things that the logical mind has no way of knowing yet? How does it sense that a person isn't trustworthy before they've done anything untrustworthy? How does it know that a decision is wrong when everything about it logically looks right? Jung's answer comes back to unconscious processing, but there are specific mechanisms worth understanding. The first is pattern recognition. Your unconscious mind has been collecting and cataloging patterns your entire life. Every person you've ever known, every relationship dynamic you've ever observed, every situation that turned out well or badly, every type of person who turned out to be safe or unsafe. All of this is stored in the unconscious, not as explicit memories necessarily, but as patterns, templates, and when you encounter something new, a new person, a new situation, your unconscious mind is instantly comparing it to everything it knows, scanning for pattern matches. When it finds a match, when the current situation resembles something from your past in a way that's relevant, it delivers the result as a feeling. The uncomfortable feeling you get around someone who seems perfectly nice might be because something about them matches a pattern your unconscious recognizes from someone who hurt you before. Not the same person, but close enough that the pattern matching system flags it. The second mechanism is micro-signal detection. Your senses are picking up far more information than your conscious mind processes. Micro-expressions that flash across someone's face for a fraction of a second. Subtle inconsistencies between what someone is saying and how their body is moving. Tonal qualities in someone's voice that don't quite match their words. Your conscious mind often doesn't register these signals explicitly, but your unconscious mind does. And it integrates all of that subtle information and delivers the conclusion as a feeling. The sense that something is off about what someone is telling you even though their words sound completely reasonable. The discomfort around someone whose behavior seems perfectly normal. These feelings are often not random. They're the result of real signal detection happening below the level of conscious awareness. The third mechanism is somatic wisdom. The body knows things that the mind doesn't: the tightening in your chest, the relaxation in your shoulders, the way your stomach either settles or churns in different situations and with different people. These are not random physiological events. They're the body's response to what it's detecting in the environment. The gut feeling quite literally sometimes lives in the gut, in the body's honest response to what the senses are registering, and the body is harder to manipulate than the mind. Harder to convince, harder to talk into or out of something when the body says no. Even when the mind is constructing reasons to say yes, the body is often the more accurate instrument. Part 4. When to trust IT and when to question IT. Gut feelings are not always right, and treating them as infallible is as problematic as ignoring them entirely. Jung was clear about this. He had enormous respect for intuition, but he understood that the unconscious is not a perfect oracle. It can be wrong, it can be distorted. So how do you know when to trust the gut feeling and when to question it? First, is this intuition or is this fear? Fear and intuition can feel very similar. Both are feelings that arise before conscious reasoning. Both say something is wrong here, but they're different things. Intuition is a reading of what's actually present, of real signals in the real situation. Fear is a response to what might happen, often filtered through past experiences of danger. Genuine intuition tends to feel calm, clear, quiet, like a knowing that doesn't need to shout. Fear tends to feel urgent, activated, physical in a more intense way. It comes with a sense of threat that needs to be responded to immediately. When you feel something strongly, it's worth asking, is this telling me something about what's actually here, or is this responding to something from my past that this situation resembles? Second, does the feeling persist? A genuine intuitive reading tends to persist. You feel something about a person or situation, and when you revisit it in different contexts at different times, the feeling remains consistent. A feeling driven by anxiety or old wounds tends to fluctuate. It's stronger when you're tired or stressed. It lessens when you're calm and rested. Persistent, context-independent feelings are generally more worth taking seriously. Third, what is your history with this type of feeling? Think about times in the past when you had a strong gut feeling about something and you either followed it or ignored it. What happened? For most people, there's a pattern. The times they ignored a strong, persistent, calm gut feeling, something important was missed. The feeling was pointing at something real. And the times they acted on anxious, urgent, fear-based feelings they mistook for intuition. The outcomes were more mixed. Understanding your own history with your gut feelings is one of the best ways to calibrate how much to trust them going forward. Part 5. The shadow and the distorted gut feeling. Here's the part that Jung would consider most important for psychological honesty. Not all gut feelings are intuition. Some of them are shadow. The shadow is the part of you that you don't acknowledge. The qualities and impulses that have been pushed below conscious awareness because they don't fit your self-concept. And shadow material has a way of expressing itself as feelings, as reactions that seem to come from outside yourself but are actually coming from the unacknowledged parts of your own psychology. Here's a specific example. Someone has a gut feeling that a particular person can't be trusted. The feeling is strong, persistent, it seems very clear. But when they examine it honestly, when they discover something interesting, the person they are suspicious of embodies a quality they themselves have suppressed, a confidence or an ambition or a freedom that they wanted for themselves and decided they couldn't have. And the gut feeling about this person isn't actually about the person, it's a projection. The shadow material is being projected onto this person and experienced as a feeling about them rather than as a recognition of something in themselves. This is not uncommon, and it's one of the most important reasons to develop genuine psychological self-awareness alongside intuitive development, because the shadow can generate very convincing feelings. Feelings that seem like clear intuitive readings but that are actually about your own unprocessed material. The tell is usually in the quality of the feeling. Shadow-generated feelings tend to have a particular charge, an intensity that goes beyond what the situation warrants. A heat to them. A judgment that's more absolute and more personal than genuine intuition usually is. Genuine intuition about a person might say, something about this doesn't feel right, something here isn't what it appears to be. Shadow projection tends to say, this person is bad, this person should be avoided, with a certainty and a charge that goes beyond the available evidence. Jung would say, learn to distinguish between these two types of feeling, because one is telling you about the world. The other is telling you about yourself, and both are useful, but for different reasons. Part 6. When people override their gut feeling. Jung observed a consistent pattern in his patients. The pattern of overriding the gut feeling and the consequences that followed. He saw it again and again. Someone had a strong, clear, persistent gut feeling about something, and they overrode it, usually for one of a few specific reasons. The feeling contradicted what they wanted to be true. The feeling contradicted what the people around them believed. The feeling couldn't be logically justified, and in case after case, the override led somewhere they didn't want to go. The person they overrode the feeling about turned out to be exactly what the feeling said. The decision they made against the gut feeling turned out to be exactly as wrong as the feeling said it was. And they came to Jung with a version of the same statement. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't listen. Jung identified several specific reasons why people override genuine intuition, the need for logical justification. Our culture places enormous value on rational, evidence-based thinking, and this creates a specific problem for intuition. If you can't logically justify a feeling, if you can't point to specific evidence, it becomes very difficult to act on it, especially when other people are involved. So they override the feeling and go with the logic. And sometimes the logic is right, and sometimes it isn't, and the gut feeling was the thing that knew social pressure. When the gut feeling contradicts what the people around you believe, when acting on it means going against the consensus, the pressure to conform is enormous. Everyone else thinks this person is great. Who am I to have a bad feeling about them? Human beings are social creatures. We're wired to align with the group. And when the gut feeling puts us out of alignment with the group, the discomfort of that misalignment often overrides the signal from the gut, the desire for a particular outcome. When you really want something to be true, when you're deeply invested in a particular relationship or decision. The gut feeling that says this isn't what you want it to be is extraordinarily difficult to hear, so you don't hear it, or you hear it and immediately explain it away. Or you feel it and then construct reasons why it must be anxiety rather than genuine perception. The desire overrides the signal, and then reality eventually confirms what the signal was saying. And you look back and realize, I knew, I just didn't want to know. Part 7, How to Develop Your GUT Feeling. The good news is that gut feeling is not a fixed capacity. It can be developed. Jung believed strongly in this, and modern psychology supports it. First, start noticing your gut feelings rather than immediately overriding them. Most people, when they have a gut feeling that contradicts their logical analysis, immediately override it. They find reasons to dismiss it, to explain it away. The first step in developing your gut feeling is simply to notice it. Not necessarily to act on it, but to register it, to say, I have a feeling about this. Where does it live in my body? How strong is it? How persistent? Start keeping a mental note of your gut feelings, what you felt when about what, and then, as time passes, what actually happened. This builds your conscious relationship with your intuitive function, and it gives you data about the accuracy of your gut feelings in different types of situations. Second, develop your somatic awareness. Gut feeling lives in the body. Accessing it requires being in contact with your body. This means developing the habit of regularly checking in with your physical experience. What is my body doing right now? Is there tension anywhere? Tightness? Ease? What does my stomach feel like? My chest? These physical signals are often the first indication that the gut feeling is speaking, and if you're living primarily in your head, if you're not in the habit of noticing them, you'll miss the first part of the message. Practices like meditation, quiet walking, or simply spending regular time in stillness all help develop this awareness. Third, create space for intuition to surface. Intuition doesn't tend to speak loudly in the middle of busy, distracted, highly stimulated states. It tends to speak in the quiet moments. The morning before you've fully engaged with the day, the shower, the walk, the space between activities when nothing is demanding your attention. This is one of the reasons people so often have their best insights in the shower or during a walk, not because those activities are special, but because they create the quiet in which the quiet voice can be heard. If you're constantly busy, constantly stimulated, the intuitive signal is there, but you're not in a state to receive it. Build space into your life for the quiet, not as a luxury, as a necessity for accessing the intelligence that lives below the noise. Fourth, follow your gut feeling in low-stakes situations and observe the results. One of the best ways to build trust in your gut feeling is to follow it in situations where the cost of being wrong is manageable. The book you're drawn to without quite knowing why. The route you feel like taking even though it's not the most logical one. The person you feel like reaching out to even though there's no particular occasion. Follow the feeling. Notice what happens. Build a track record over time if your gut feeling is reliable. And for most people in most situations it is. The track record will give you real grounds for trusting it in situations that matter more. Part 8, Jung's ultimate message. Let me bring this to the most important point. Jung believed that the capacity to listen to the unconscious, to hear the quiet voice that arrives before the reasons do, is not a luxury or a personality quirk. It's a necessity, because the rational mind, powerful as it is, cannot do everything. It's brilliant at certain things, at analyzing systems, at following logical chains, at building and testing explicit models of reality. But it's not designed to read the subtle signals in another person's behavior that indicate whether they can be trusted. It's not designed to detect the pattern across your last several relationships that's pointing towards something you need to examine. It's not designed to access the accumulated wisdom of your entire life's experience in a single moment of felt knowing. These are things that the unconscious mind, operating through intuition, can do, and that the rational mind, working alone, cannot. Jung's prescription for a whole, integrated, fully human life was not to choose between rational and intuitive. It was to develop both, to use both, to hold them in dialogue with each other, to let the logical mind analyze and evaluate and question, and to let the intuitive mind perceive and feel and know, not one at the expense of the other, both together, in an ongoing conversation between the conscious and the unconscious. And at the center of that conversation, quiet, persistent, often arrived before you were ready for it, is the gut feeling, not infallible, not magical, not beyond examination, but real and important and deserving of far more attention and respect than most people give it, because it's not random noise in your system, it's your deepest intelligence, trying to tell you something you need to know, closing so the next time you feel it. That quiet knowing that arrived before your reasons did, that sense of something being right or wrong that you can't yet explain. That persistent feeling about a person or a situation or a decision that keeps coming back no matter how many times you try to think it away. Don't dismiss it. Don't immediately act on it either, but don't dismiss it. Sit with it. Notice where it lives in your body. Ask what it might be detecting that your conscious mind hasn't caught up with yet. Let it be part of the conversation rather than something to be overridden in the name of being rational, because what Jung understood, and what modern psychology is increasingly confirming, is that this feeling you've been taught to distrust is one of the most sophisticated, most experienced, most genuinely intelligent parts of you. It's been paying attention your entire life to everything you've experienced, to every person you've known, to every pattern that's ever played out in front of you, and when it speaks, when it delivers its quiet, certain, unexplained knowing, it deserves to be heard, not because it's always right, but because it's always there, always watching, always processing, and it usually knows. Before you do, thank you for watching. Leave a comment and tell me, have you ever had a gut feeling that turned out to be exactly right, or one that you ignored and wished you hadn't? Subscribe for more content about psychology, the unconscious mind, and the deeper patterns of human experience. See you in the next one.